later. Hi. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend and coach, Kellan Fluckiger. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Kathy. It's great to see you again.
Yeah. So Kellan and I met at a Ken MacArthur event where he was a speaker and he blew us away. And so we signed up for his results equation mastermind group that met once a week for, I think 2 years. 2 years tonight. Yeah. And from it, I did my signature product, and I made lifelong friendships really from the people that were in your groups. So Kellan, so what are you up to now?
Well, right now I'm in the candy store. I had a calendar that had a page. You know how you get those calendars with a saying or a picture or something on every day, right?
Yeah.
I had a calendar, a little desktop calendar with a saying on every day. And one of the sayings that I saved and put on my wall for a long time was, "The truth is where the truth is. And sometimes it's in the candy store."
Oh, God.
And that was attributed to Bob Dylan. So anyway, I always think of that when I have this background. This is actually a green screen, but it's very, very, very good. And it's a picture of a candy store in Sydney.
Oh,
Well,
you are a world traveler. You're in Canada right now, but you have lived in the U.S. And I got to spend time with you also at what was it called? What was that called? Vidsummit. Yeah, that was so cool. That was so cool. I wonder, did they get to have it this year?
They did a virtual one, and they're going to do an in-person one in September.
So
virtual.
I want to go.
Yeah, let me find out the dates.
Okay.
I'll be going, so let me find out the dates, and I'll get them to you. I don't have them in front.
Fantastic. Well, so Kellan, for people that don't know you and want to know more about the results equation, I don't even know where to start with you, because there's so many different ways that you help people. You can help people when they're writing a book or putting their storyline together for explaining their gifts and how they can help people. You help people get organized. You went like that, no?
No, I do. Yes, to all of the above. Yes, ma'am.
You also, the reason we have you on today is you're going to be talking about a new way to share your artistic expression with music.
Right.
But you also had some near-death experiences, which I was with you during that, where you came out and you downloaded some books.
Yep.
So I don't know, where do you want to start with introducing who you are and how you help?
So let's just make it really simple. I help people who are committed to ending addiction to mediocrity. Every one of us, especially your listeners, know for sure that there's a divine plane. There's a feel. There's more to life than meets the eye. We often don't talk about it. We pretend it away. We dismiss it as whatever. But I'm coming from a mathematics, engineering, electricity, hardcore science background. So even with all that, yeah, I died. I had a near-death experience. I had 3 conversations with God at the door between life and eternity. I wrote a book called Meeting God at the Door.
Right.
Before that, in my executive career, so I had a long executive career, and that career was a disaster. I had 40 years actually of undiagnosed, untreated depression.
Right.
Life was a roller coaster, a mess of addictions, rehab, hidden things, ruined life, ruined relationships, making way too much money, just like movie stuff, right? One side is this and the other side is holy crap.
Yeah.
One of the first books I wrote was Tightrope of Depression, which is about my own journey, my journey from darkness, despair, and death to light, love, and life. I had a divine intervention. That's not the near-death experience that got me out of that stuff in one day. Some years later, I started working on and talking to people and taking responsibility for doing something. Up to then, I'd never even talked to anybody. So this is all private for decades, literally decades. When I finished Tightrope in 2015, which is now 6 years ago, I then realized, I thought there was only one book. I guess there's another one. But then I wrote volume 2, which is called Down from the Gallows, in keeping with the rope theme. And I also realized it would be a trilogy. So volume 3 will be out at the end of next year.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not telling anybody the name of that one. That will come. But volume 3 will be the end of 2022. What I decided to do, because I'm a musician, is to model what I want help people do, which is to give in, to give place, to make a priority, sharing their gifts, because serving others with our divine gifts is the highest and best use of our lives, period. And if we're doing something else like I did for decades, and there was nothing wrong with the job that I had and the executive positions and but it wasn't fulfilling in doing what I do now and working in my highest interest. Anyway, so I decided with each book I was going to do an album of music. And so I now have 2 albums done, 22 original songs, 11 on each album, and they're ready to go. What I'm going to do is over the summer and into the fall, maybe every 6 weeks starting tonight, I'm going to do a concert. The concert tonight, which Kathy's going to give you the link for, is the debut concert. It'll feature 6 of the songs, 3 from each album, and the stories associated with them. So there'll be a little talking, then a song, and some more, and I'll be going back and forth. The album that goes with Tightrope of Depression is called Name of the Black, and it's as grumpy as it sounds. There's the frightening and the terrifying things, and then the album that goes with Down from the Gallows is called Promise and Power. And it's about recovery. So there's 11 songs on each album. I'll be doing 6 tonight, and then in 6 weeks or so, another group, and there'll be 4 concerts over the summer and into the fall, maybe every 6 weeks. So that's how I'm debuting these. They will be online eventually. In a few weeks, I have a distributor already, because I've been doing music for decades. I have a distributor that puts stuff on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify and all that stuff. So if you look my name up on any of those places, you'll see the books and the music that I've done. Not this music, because it isn't there yet, but it will be after the debut concert and so forth. So that's what the concert is. That's what I'm doing. And that's what's happening tonight at 7 Mountain Time.
And I apologize for the lawn mower in the background. Oh, good. You can't hear it. I can.
So if it's terrifying for you, it won't be so bad for the listeners, because I can't hear it.
Oh, good. Okay, so Kellan, when people meet you, they realize that you have this magnetic energy, and that you're all about love. You are one of the most loving beings I know, and as a man, not ashamed to show up like that. So it's not like you're coming out feminine, but you have this open-hearted acceptance and need to connect to that in somebody else. How did that come from, you think, your depression and learning compassion for yourself? Or how do you think that came? Because it's remarkable.
Well, I didn't used to be patient. I used to have an insane, obscene need to be right. And I was part of the depression. The way it showed up in me is everything that ever happened around me that was wrong was my fault, and I should already have known it and fixed it.
Oh, I do that too.
Constantly in the mode of feeling like I hadn't done what I was supposed to do, because everything was my fault in every relationship I had. And then that breeds resentment, because in truth that it's not, but you feel like it is. And that came from where it all started was my mom. And I don't mean to say bad, but she was a brutal disciplinarian. Today it would be felony child abuse. No kidding. But then it was in the name of be a good boy and do the right things. And I remember hiding in the locker room at high school because I didn't want anybody to see the bruises on my, I'm in high school, right? And in the 9th grade, 15 years old, hiding. because I changed last. I didn't want anybody to see me naked in the locker room because of what I look like, my backside and back and stuff. So I hid, and I remember those things very vividly. And I mean, I don't carry any negativity at all. But here's what I know. What I internalized from that is I'm not good enough, and I never will be. And so I spent from when I was 15 to when I was 55, 40 years, never talking to a soul, believing with all my heart that I was the cause of all the problems around me. And of course, when you attract some people in your life that are broken, they're more than happy to have you take that role.
Right.
To the place of blame and the root of all evil and everything that's wrong is your fault. So I internalized not good enough and lived that out in the sense of broken relationships, battlefield of addictions and rehabs and stuff. And even though on the outside I was this wildly successful executive, I made so much money that my $3,000 a week cocaine habit was no big deal.
Right. Because you're a force of nature.
Terrifying.
You are a force of nature.
And so that's who I was and what I was. And finally, it destroyed me to the point where I wasn't me. God said, I have other ideas. So I had a divine experience, if you want to read it. And that's not near-death one. That was only 3 years ago. But this was in 2007, end of 7. That changed me from a $3,000 a week coke addict to nothing, to zero, to sober in one day. It's like, okay, yeah, okay. And that was it.
Wow.
And that's 13 years ago. And, so that was the beginning of it. And I realized I had to change. But what that didn't do was deal with the depression or deal with all the stuff. What that did is it got rid of the addiction. So it's like, okay, now I have to do something else. So I walked away from all the contracts I had, changed jobs, left everything, and started on a new path. And that's when I decided to become a coach. 2008, 9, I wrote some books on meditation.
Yeah.
I wrote Tightrope. And during that process, I started talking to people finally. And, because the first 3 or 4 years I didn't, I just thought, okay, I did all this bad stuff. So now I have to fix it. And again, I was thinking I had to do this. And of course you can't. And so finally, I started seeing somebody, talking to shrinks and doing things. And that was after 3 or 4 years of trying to do it myself. So that's 2011 or 12. And the reason is because I felt myself spiraling down again. Like I can't, I've been trying white knuckling this whole time and I can't.
Right. Well, you had core issues that you had to deal with, partially self-love. Yeah.
My addictions weren't drugs or alcohol, even though those were rampant. My addictions were to self-loathing.
Yes. Yeah.
Straight up.
Yep.
I had to find ways to prove that my worthlessness was true. So when I had success, it was ridiculous. Financially, I had to ruin it because I can't have it.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't know any of that when I met you. I knew that you had the results equation. I wanted results. And you had a system that I figured I could do that gave me piece by piece pieces of the puzzle that would allow me to work my way into a result I wanted. And I realized, and I still somehow have trouble I do everyone else's stuff first and my stuff last, so I still am not totally cured, but what I watched you do with people was there was never guilt when they showed up to our mastermind without their homework done, or with they had given a commitment, because at the end of each meeting we would have a commitment to you and to the group. And lots of times people showed up without that being completed. You never held them hostage. You never shamed them. You held them in a pure loving way to so that they could heal that. And how did you learn that?
So thank you. I'll share something with you. Lexi just finished her first year as a school teacher.
Oh my God.
Boom.
Wow. Wow.
There for part of that. So yeah,
Wow.
it happened all the way done, and she just finished her first year with a real job as a teacher, all done.
Fantastic.
Okay, so what I realized, because of what I'd been through, hell and back, it just helped me develop enormous patience and empathy. Because, and here's why: it's no magic in me. I figured if God, our creator, had that much patience with me as a wreck, as all the places, and went to that length to rescue me, then I could do no less.
Oh,
So it's that simple.
wow. Wow, that's beautiful. Wow. So the other thing, you guys, when you work with Kellan, is he does these wonderful Saturday work days where everybody, no matter what group they're in with him, they get together and check in. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna spend this day working on something. And Kellan was always working on his music, pretty much, that I remember when I was working on my signature product or a book or whatever I was doing. And that was what was really cool. He had created a padded sound studio in the basement, and he had all the technology, and every once in a while you'd let us hear some of the music.
That's right. So that's what we're doing. Tonight's 6 finished songs, and they're going to be performed unplugged. So I'm just going to play keyboard and sing. But
Oh,
they're released or full production, and they're done.
okay. Well, I've got the bit.ly link. I started to put the Eventbrite link on, and it was like a mile long. So I turned it into a bit.ly link. So I'll be putting that in the comment in the information so people can join us. And but Kellan, what is it that the part of the your experience and how you have pushed through your fears or your self-talk that didn't serve you is an example. You share that with everybody. You help them as a uplifter to have people see their own divinity, which is part of the reason why I so love you and love what you do. How did music fit into this? Were you doing music at 15, or how did music fit into your healing process?
So in from first to last. I wanted to be a musician. I
Oh,
opened my first recording studio in the 80s. And here was part of the thing, because I was still steeped in the idea that I needed my mom's approval. She said, "No, you can't be a musician. That's bad. Musicians, they do drugs and cheat on their spouses, and so you can't do that. You need to have," it was the go get a real job thing, only it was times 10, like a really bad version of go get a real job, kid.
yeah.
I
Okay.
was grown up and married and go get a real job. So I had a studio for many years, and I had some good contracts and success. And I got to the point where it was choose: do the studio full time, be a musician, or continue pursuing the energy business, electrical stuff. And I shut the studio down for many years. And that was like cutting out my heart and
Oh,
burying it.
yeah.
Okay, it's like paving. So the foundation of my life from the time I was breathing, I started teaching piano when I was 17. I learned to read music at the same time I learned to read. Like, I don't remember not being able to read music, just like you don't remember not being able to read. It's something I learned then. So I that was like breathing for me, and I paved it over. It was like I paved over the basement and the first floor of my whole soul and lived on the second floor and up, and built a beautiful mansion out of success and money and fame and blah blah blah. But the problem is when you do that, eventually the foundations rot and the whole thing fell down.
Right.
So music and its expression have been like the core of everything forever. And so the return to that, when I got free in 2007, for the last 12 or 13 years, it's been everything. I've done a whole bunch of non depression related or recovery related music. I did a bunch of EDM, electronic dance music, and jazz and meditation music and all kinds of stuff in the last 13 years. So if you go on Amazon, you see a boatload of jazz, or Spotify. Just put my name in. It's easy because there's only 2 Kellan Flukigers in the world, and the other one's my son, and he doesn't write books or do music. So
and your wife. There's a he's junior.
Kellan Fluckiger, yeah, he's now 40. So but anyway, he's got a YouTube video or two. He used to be an MMA cage fighter, so he's big and has a lot of tattoos, but he's not doing any of that anymore. He's quite different now. Last picture I saw him, he's quite heavy, and he hasn't. So anyway, but he used to do he was a heavyweight All-American wrestler in college, tried out for the Olympics in 2004. That sort of stuff. But anyway, there's only 2 Kellan Fluckiger. So put my name in anywhere. Be sure you spell it right.
And say it right, because the other way of saying it is fighting words.
Yeah, it's funny because I was a keynote speaker at a 3-day conference once, and my friend was putting it on, and he left the L out of my last name in the program. And so he spent 3 days apologizing, and I got to spend 3 days making jokes. So it was all good.
My God. Well, yeah, I was trying to practice saying it before we came on because, but anyway, I did tag a bunch of people that were in the group with me over those couple of years. And I have to say again that the way that you worked with all of us as a mastermind and as a teacher, what created a community. And that is a rare task. That is a wonderful example of how I would like to have all of my courses as well. I want to ask again about, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your near-death experience, because I got to read those 2 books that happened, that were the result of that, because I think people have to understand Kellan has a capacity. You can see he's like a Renaissance man. He's a writer, he's a coach, he's a doer. He's got his left brain developed and his right brain with the music. So you've got somebody who is experimenting and being on the cutting edge of all these different aspects of how we can be. So when he works with you, he helps you find your cutting edge, which not very many people do. Most people hold space for you to find it, but Kellan kind of, it's not like a regular coaching. Someone asks you a question and then you go, oh, stupid me. This is more about, how do you feel about it? What really in your gut is pushing you? What is your core soul reason for being here, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
So in 2018, 3 years ago this month,
a
cruise. We hadn't been on a cruise before. It was on the Baltic Sea, and that was fun. We visited St. Petersburg and Helsinki and Tallinn, Estonia, and blah blah blah. And so at the end, we were in Oslo, and I got sick, and I was just sick, and it was time to come home. So I didn't worry about trying to get medical care in Europe. We flew home on Tuesday that week. And, I don't go to the doctor. So I kept figuring it was flu or something, and I'd get over it. So by Friday, it was horrific. And I figured I got to go to the walk-in. Canada, we have walk-in clinics. And so I went. They wouldn't let me in. They looked at me and said, you can't come in here. Like I couldn't even come in the front door. Get out of here. Go to the emergency. There's nothing we can do for you here.
Oh, my gosh.
So I went to the ER, and in just a little bit, like usually ER is 2 or 3 hour wait, and they triage and all that crap. In 10 minutes, I was in a private room, and it was obvious to them that this was like beyond serious. Anyway, so within a few hours of being in there, I lapsed into a coma. I was in a coma for several weeks. During that time, my heart stopped. I died. Right. It turns out later they found out what I had was a necrotizing superbug, a necrotizing version of MRSA in both lungs, which was the worst case of pneumonia any of the pulmonologists at the University of Alberta had ever seen in their careers.
Wow.
And they told me that we talk about COVID here with a mortality rate of 2 or 3%. The mortality rate of the bug that I had, the 10-day mortality rate was 100%.
Oh my God.
And that's if you weren't in the hospital. If you were in the hospital, the 10-day mortality rate was only 60%. I got to the hospital at the end of day 5. So it was not surprising that I died. I should have. Okay. And so when I did that, I came to in a gray room, and it was like a photo card gray, that kind of average gray picture. And then I could see a doorway over there, and it was white on the other side, but it wasn't streaming through. And I wanted to be at the door, and I was horizontal like I was on the bed. So it's like dying, your spirit's still over there. But anyway, I wanted to be at the door. So then I was at the door, and I was leaning on the door jamb on the gray side of my right shoulder, and there was someone on the other side leaning on the door jamb on their right shoulder. And so we were having this conversation, and the first conversation started with one question. And the question was very simple. Do you want to come home? And there was no expectation. Like you mentioned, holding space. So as coaches, we have the idea holding space for someone to learn, whatever. And it's a beautiful concept, and we do, and we give space for. There has never been any space holding like was happening in that place at that moment. There was no expectation. There was nothing except purity, space. It needed an answer. I needed to answer the question. There was no pressure one way or the other. There was nothing. It was just space. Like I can't even there are no words. So there's space. We talked about it for a while, about what I would stay and do or not or whatever. And finally I said, okay, well, I'm not done.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the end of that conversation. And the next day there was another conversation, and the previous day's conversation about staying or going didn't come up. I mean, that decision was done. Okay. And I'm sure that took place during the time I was dead. Now, I don't know the other conversations the next day. I could have been back in the body, awake or whatever. I mean, not awake, but not with my heart stopped, because it was the next day. But it didn't matter because that decision had already been made. So I was still in a coma for several weeks. But anyway, so we talked about what I was gonna do and why and everything else. And that's what the book you referred to, Meeting God at the Door, talks about. It's see-through because I've got green screen on, but it's actually not see-through. I can't unsee through it, right? Woo! Anyway, and the 3 conversations are outlined in here, but the number 2 conversation was so long and so detailed and contains some very specific instructions about how to help people change beliefs. Right. And that second conversation is fully detailed in the Book of Context.
Yeah, and that is a wonderful book.
So these 2 came from that visit.
Yeah.
And then, so that was, and the second conversation was quite long. And the third conversation started again with just one question. And by the next day, I was really excited because I decided to stay. I knew what I was going to do. And I was just like buzzing and repeating over and over and over again the framework and all the stuff that turned into the Book of Context. And then that one question was, are you sure?
Yeah, well, that's what it's like.
And I hyperventilated. I'm like, what do you mean, am I sure? Am I stupid? Am I missing something? Like what? And so we talked about it again from every possible angle. And finally I said, yeah, I'm sure. Okay. And that conversation, and nothing was said to indicate that, but it ended with a finality that I knew we were done. Okay. So then, sometime X number of days later, I came out of the coma and I'd lost 35 pounds and my body was completely atrophied and I had to learn to walk again and I couldn't hardly do anything. I looked like a survivor from a concentration camp for a while. Yep. I was completely hollowed out and atrophied. And when I had to learn to walk, like I said, and when I got home, one of the things, because I've done martial arts a lot, that I always measured my fitness at all by was how many push-ups I could do. And there's never been a time in my life when I couldn't hit the floor and do 40 push-ups. About a week after I got home, which was, a few weeks later, I got on the floor and tried to do a push-up and I couldn't get my nose out of the carpet.
Yeah.
So I realized, okay, we are flatlined. We can't, And so I had, for the last 3 years, that's what I've been doing. My lungs, they told me, may never come back. They told me 3 years to never, but they're pretty good. And I'm able to do the things I'm going to do tonight, which is sing and all that other stuff. And yes, I can now do 40 push-ups.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. The world needs you, Kellan.
Yeah. That's the short version. If you want the long version, I wrote the experience from two perspectives. I wrote what I saw, everything, and then I wrote the experience from outside, not because I knew, but because Joy was there, my wife, and she told me about all the frantic activity and the doctors doing this and that and the other. So I wrote that in there too. So I wrote what happened to me, and then I wrote what was going on at the same time in the ER, in the ICU. So
so you get that. So I knew you and was one of your clients during all of this happening, and so I'm wondering, a lot of people that have near-death experiences, they come back with superpowers. Do you feel like that experience, because you didn't go through the door, so you didn't really get the union, the remembrance fully of your experience with God, but you got a taste of it. And usually that mystical experience changes how you show up here, because there's no reason to not do everything you can do right now, right? So do you feel like that changed you, or you were already a super achiever before?
I went on a speaking tour in August and did four, and I got home in July, and then, September, October, I went on, and so 2 months later, Joy helped me, and I went on to spoke 4 places in 4 weeks, 1 a week for 4 weeks, and all of them were about this. And one of them was a group of 50 or so high-powered coaches, and one of them asked me at the end, so what's the biggest difference for you? And I hadn't really prepared for Q&A, whatever. I don't do that anyway. I just do whatever's handy. And so I started to think about it, and my mouth opened, and I heard myself say, I no longer experience fear. And so I thought about that later, and then 5 months later, another experience happened where I was paralyzed from the waist down and a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
That caused me to write another book called Walking Without Fear.
Oh.
The heels of that. So there's actually a third book that belongs to this series, because when I woke up paralyzed from the waist down, the MRSA had come back in my spinal column up here at the top and had calcified. And so they had to do from C2 to T1, which is about that long. And C2 is clear up here, and that's like death. You interfere with your spinal cord up there and you're finished. I mean, that's clear up at the top. So once again, it was in a situation of being life-threatening. And it was funny because they took in the hospital, they brought me in on a stretcher, obviously, because I couldn't walk. And they did an x-ray, and then they did an MRI, and they took me from the emergency room to the operating room, like ER to the OR. Right.
Wow.
The on-call spinal surgeon, which accidentally, and there are no accidents, happened to be one of the top dogs in Canada. He happened to be the guy there on call, and he took one look at the MRI, and he said, get that guy to the operating room right now. So they did an operation, and when they took the stitches out, 3 weeks later, I was in the hospital a few days. He said to me, I could count on less than one hand the number of people who have come in the hospital like you did and then walked out under their own power in 10 days. So there's no question. And no, when I said to someone, I don't experience fear later, they said, really? And they said, how come? And I looked at them and I said, what on earth do I have to be afraid of? Like, there is nothing that could be or do or happen. There is no threat. There is no possibility. There is there's nothing.
Wow.
None of that holds anything for me. I know. I've been there. I've had that conversation. I know what I'm doing here. I know you and every person is divine.
Right.
I know you had a contract. You had a deal. Your
Yes.
highest and best joy and development comes from finding and doing that. And my only question is, if you're ready, let me help, because I know how to do that.
Yes,
And
you do. Yes, you do. And you did before you had all this mess happen. I mean, the thing is before you had that martial arts, like, I know how to use my energy. But now you have this God connection with that, with the no fear. So it's like having someone have a rudder on a boat. You can navigate the waters and show people what you see for them in a whole different way. I imagine it's quite powerful.
well, I love what I do. I only do one thing. And I don't even mean that in a funny way. I love everything I do. And so I get up every day excited. I work all day. I don't know what work means. I have a series of things that I have chosen to do,
Right.
consistent with my divine mission. I have learned the patience that you talk about. I wasn't that way before. I have learned that. I have learned love. I have learned that openness. And at the same time, to strongly remind and invite each person. There's nothing passive about a choice to love.
Yes. That's right. That's it. And the choice to love and be present as that is the cutting edge for me. That is the whole reason we're here. If we get to do that and share that, that's the most beautiful thing. Wow.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk today. And if this concert serves anyone, or if I can help someone in some way, I would enjoy that.
That's great. Well, I put the link to the concert, and I also put the link to Kellan's website, because I really think if you go there and look and see the testimonials, which he could have hundreds more. I mean, seriously, hundreds more. Because what Kellan does that is very rare for when you have a mentor slash coach, is he really mirrors and holds the space for you to see your own divinity, and holds it high enough that, and patiently enough till you do. So it's a rare opportunity, especially if you are a type A and you like and you want to make the world a better place, but you're not necessarily having fun on the ride. Would you say that's a good explanation?
Absolutely. People that are committed to ending addiction to mediocrity
Perfect.
or average. I've had enough of the addiction to average, and my mission is to abolish it.
It's so perfect. It's so perfect. So during this past year where we've all been on lockdown, I think I don't know if you guys are on lockdown still, but we're not. We're not even to wear masks anymore here. It's crazy in Colorado. But are you finding that that's one of the things that people are really coming to you, is to work through their fears, or are you finding people being more head down, getting their divine work out?
I found that business didn't change for me. It's better. Actually, it is still better than it was. But it's never been an issue, because the sign on my wall is the same as it always was, which says I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve.
Right.
And I mean that. And so business has been good. There's lots of people who come. There's more people, I think, because of the disruption that's taken place,
Mhm.
that have decided they're going to heed the innate stirrings that some of us have, all the way to shoutings, depends on where you are in your journey, stirrings to, undeniable earthquakes on that. Some people have whisperings, and we beat them down and ignore them for a long time. And then they turn a little noisier and a little noisier, and maybe your life gets upended a few times. And it's really just an invitation. That's all. It's an invitation to make a choice to step into, I hate it when people say step into your greatness. It's, some crock, but it's just to be the truth of who you were. You were created, you were put here for a purpose, and it's about time to say yes.
Right. And it is fearlessness, really, truly. I mean, I used to have this gal, I used to buy these oils, and she used to call me and say, "Oh, trust is on sale again. You want to get some more?" Because I would buy these vials of trust and put it on each morning, like, "Oh, I'm in a trust now because I've got this oil on." But I didn't. But then working with you and working in the team, I think everyone loves on each other in those groups. So I don't know if you're still doing groups like that, but I highly recommend it to anybody because I made lifelong friends from it. I mean, that was what was a big part of it, was the amazing connection at being vulnerable in group and being loved through that, because there's so much shame. I think that's shame, being fearful of the shame showing is one of the biggest fears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, well, thank you so much. Any parting words?
One of the most important things, in fact, the two most important words that will guide you as you make a choice, a continuous choice, is love and forgiveness. Love starts with self-love. You love who you are because you can't love anybody else more than you love yourself, as painful as that is to hear for people that think they do. And forgiveness is the antidote to all that poison and baggage that we carry around. And it has nothing to do with what anyone else does or doesn't do. Forgiveness is a gift you give not only yourself, but all those people you can serve when you are unburdened and whole.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, I love you, and please give my love to Joy.
I will.
And yeah, again, anyone, if you get a chance to work with Kellan, don't miss the opportunity. And if you can listen to his latest album selections tonight, the link is in our information, and I'll be posting this all over. So please, it's free. You'll get an experience. This is a pure love offering for you to reconnect to who you really are by experiencing Kellan's path. Right?
Well, thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your kind words. Thanks for doing this. Like I didn't even remember to tell you I was doing it, and you just did this. So thank you. Bless your heart.
Of course.
The good that you're trying to do. So thank you.
Sure. My pleasure. Okay. Loved everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye. Good luck.
Yes.
Have fun. Have a blast.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.